Alright, we are recording for the 41st tale in Grimm's Fairy Tales. Yes, that was the right direction. I couldn't actually see because I had a window blocking it. But in any case, this one is Sleeping Beauty, which I've been looking forward to. It's been a while since I watched the Disney movie. That one might be better. I'm not sure. Because it's been too long since I've seen it. But yeah, it's an okay story, but what was the last one? I don't remember the name of the last one. The Water of Life. That's right. I like that story a lot better. This one, not so much. It there might be a moral to it. I'm not sure, but it might be hidden in symbols that I'm not recognizing. But we'll get to it. So the story starts. Got a king and queen, as usual. They want a kid, haven't been able to have one. Well, that sucks. Queen's bathing one day, and a frog comes out of the water and tells her, "In a year, you'll have a daughter." Cool! Didn't know that frogs could do that. Anyway, indeed it's true, they have a daughter. And they are so happy about this that the king decides, I have to throw a feast, I have to celebrate this, and invite everyone. Just everyone. Well, almost everyone. He has 12 gold plates. And he invites the wise women to come because he wants, them to be happy and also be celebrating so that they will be kind and generous to his daughter. The problem is 13. So one is to stay home because he doesn't have enough gold plates for them. These wise women, I think, could also be described as witches to a degree, but they're not necessarily good or evil, but they do possess some power. And during the celebration, they do start giving her gifts. The first gives her virtue, the second beauty, third riches, and so on down the line. I'm kind of pausing here because I'm just thinking because it's written as wise woman, which I wouldn't think. Maybe that is an ancient, shouldn't necessarily say ancient, but an old meaning to witches, as opposed to being magical, being wise woman. But it does seem that they at least have some ability to apply their will. Like, I give you the gift of virtue. Well, that's not exactly something somebody can do unless they can apply their will on the world, which is kind of a thing of magic. Anyway, going down the line, number 11 gives her a gift, and then the 13th, the one who wasn't invited, busts in. Let me actually see if I can... Okay. The king's daughter, and so she busts in, cries out in a loud voice, "The king's daughter shall, in her 15th year, prick herself with a spindle and fall down dead." And then turn around and left. So that sucks. But there's 13. 11 went, that was 13. 12 gets to go. But the 12th, whose good wish still remained unspoken, came forward, and as she could not undo the evil sentence, this seems fair as a rule for magic, she could still soften it. But, yeah. And as she could not undo the evil sentence, but only soften it, she said, "It shall not be death, but a deep sleep of 100 years into which the princess shall fall." Technically, it's more than that, but we'll get to it. So, the king then is like, okay, all spindles in the land are to be burned. This ain't happening, okay? I'm not letting this happen to my daughter. That's cool. It's also very reasonable. It's the king. He can do that. If you want to protect your daughter, do it. Or any of your kids, do it. Does make me wonder a little bit, does that mean that they're importing all of the textiles and such that you'd be making on spindles? Or are they coming up with other solutions? Not sure. There's another thought that came to me, but now it's gone. Well, I guess one thing that we can get to. So anyway, 15th birthday comes around. For whatever reason, the king and queen are gone that day. They come back, but too late. So they're not there to celebrate, which does seem a little odd, but then is also... This is one thing that is quite different about, at least modern Western culture. We celebrate birthdays. But, Middle Eastern cultures don't. I know that is one difference between us. But it's also... And it was funny, I once was talking about it with somebody who I think he was from Syria. I don't remember. It was funny because somebody else was listening. It's like, really? He's like, yeah. One difference. It's not just that we celebrate birthdays and they don't. Not to say the birthdays aren't important, but it's like we really celebrate. They don't. They, however, and he confirms, like, oh yeah, there are people in my family that can name our ancestors in every generation going back like a dozen or more. We don't do that in the West. So it is one of those curious things that is different between us. Anyway, it seems odd. They don't seem interested in celebrating her birthday, at least not then. But because she is left home alone, she's just exploring the castle and ends up in a room in a tower that was locked, but keys right there, turns it, enters, finds an old woman, I think it says an old woman, at a spindle, which she's never seen before, so she doesn't recognize it, she doesn't understand it, which actually gives me an idea to mention. Yes, an old woman with a spindle busily spinning her flax. She doesn't know what it is. It's like, what sort of thing is that rattles so merrily, said the girl, and she took the spindle and wanted to spin too, but scarcely had she touched the spindle when the magic decree was fulfilled, and she pricked her finger with it. So it's not stating it, but potentially this is the wise woman has returned to ensure that this happens. Because also, where would the spindle have come from? But the thought that just occurred to me is, as I said, she doesn't even know what a spindle is. Which is kind of a problem because, and this is one of those things that parents, and I'm not one, but it's like, you have the responsibility to protect your child, but at the same time, you also need to balance that with preparing them, because you can't protect them all their lives, and there are some things that you will not be able to protect them from. You need to prepare them. The king tried to protect her, but never prepared her. She doesn't know about the curse, apparently, and she doesn't know where the spindle is. So she has no capacity to protect herself. I wonder if maybe that's part of the symbolism here. I'm not sure, because I just don't know. But anyway, so she falls down asleep. But the spell is greater than that. And this is also goes unexplained. I guess it's just convenient that the whole of the castle falls asleep. And also the king and queen have returned, so they are now in the hall and they fall down asleep. But everyone and everything. So even the fire falls asleep. It doesn't say it goes out. It says it falls asleep. The meat that was being cooked stops fizzling. All the horses, the dogs, the pigeons, all fall asleep. But then on top of that, the a thorned bush of some kind. I'm just trying to remember what it actually said. Thorned hedge. Yes, a hedge of thorns grew up. Okay. Which every year became higher. It grew up around the castle until it basically covered all the way to its flag on the top. Which I don't know why you'd say which every year became higher. Because that I mean, it'd be kind of low to start. I just imagine being much, much faster. Anyhow, by the way, it's also at this point that we finally get the princess's name as Briar Rose, which is, it is interesting for a couple reasons. One is, in a lot of these fairy tales, they're just princes. They're just princesses. They're not actually given names. Like even the last one with the Water of Life, it was just the three princes or the three kings' sons, and it's the eldest, the middle, and the youngest. That would be it. There's no other names given. So this is kind of interesting, and I do wonder if there is a relationship. There is a symbol there, relationship with it being Briar Rose, and what all is happening. Especially because, okay, so it's surrounded with thorns. I'll come back to the Briar Rose thing. Because to me, I do think of Briar as associating that with hedges as well. I could be wrong in that. Maybe I should look it up. Why not? Briar. Any thorny plant, now especially a wild rose. Okay. So, yes. Is related to that. So I guess then, in a way, just as she is Briar Rose, like the thorns themselves are also this briar, so there's a connection there. It consistently refers to them as king's sons, meaning princes, come and they want to try to break and try to get into the castle and rescue her, do whatever. But but they consistently fail because the hedge is so thick. They get caught in it and actually die miserable deaths, I think is even how I put it. Yes, and could not get loose again and died a miserable death. But then, eventually, there's another prince who while going by, came across an old man who told him about it. He was like, "Oh yeah, I remember. Yeah, heard about that from my grandfather. I'm not afraid. I'll try to enter." Well, he got lucky, and this is part of the reason why I'm not enjoying the story as much. And I do potentially see the movie, the anime movie that Disney did so many years ago, as being better. Which is that it says that this is the day that the 100 years has ended, that the curse is technically ended. So him entering, it's not like he's just seeing like the right number in line. It's like, the seventh caller will win. I mean, so he goes in, but by the time the 100 years had just passed, and the day had come when Briar Rose was to awake again. So he just got lucky by timing, it seems. When the king's son came near to the thorn hedge, it bloomed large and beautiful flowers, which parted from each other of their own accord and let him pass unhurt before closing again behind him like a hedge. So it opened for him. He literally is just the lucky one. Enters in and is seeing the various animals and such. It does not indicate. It says that they are still asleep. Continues going in, encounters all the different people there, sees the king and queen, keeps exploring, and eventually makes his way up to where she has fallen asleep, where Briar Rose is. There is no mention of the woman who's at the spindle, by the way, which would suggest this is the wise woman who has returned to ensure that the curse does take effect, and she was immune to it and just left. So in that regard, I do see, because my memory for the movie, that was Maleficent, and was also like the evil queen there, and it's like, we don't necessarily need to go that, but I do feel like some sort of challenge to prove him worthy, because there's no proof of worthiness here. He just sees her. There she lay so beautiful that he could not turn his eyes away. And he stooped down and gave her a kiss. But as soon as he kissed her, Briar Rose opened her eyes and awoke, and she looked at him quite sweetly. And it's like, the curse is broken, but it's not necessarily because he kissed her. It literally does say a couple paragraphs before, by this time the 100 years had just passed, and the day had come when Briar Rose was to wake again. He was the seventh caller. He's not, like, it's not that the kiss awoke her necessarily. So I find that a little amusing. And then it's just, everyone woke up. We're kind of astonished by this, although some of them just continued with what they were doing. Like, the cook had grabbed a boy that was like trying to steal something, had grabbed to punish him, but when falling asleep had released him. And now and the cook gave the boy such a box on the ear that he screamed. But it ends with, and then the marriage of the king's son with Briar Rose was celebrated with all splendor, and they lived contented to the end of their days. So coming back a bit, with the whole, her name being Briar Rose, and the castle being surrounded with a hedge of thorns, that on this day bloom, the flowers bloom there and open for him. I kind of wonder, going back to what I was saying about protection versus preparation, and how you need to do both. The hedge was protecting the castle to a degree. The king tried and failed to protect her. There's also a degree of preparation for somebody who can just come by growing up. I mean, yes, you could potentially grow up naive, but it is also just as you grow up, your mind does become more complex, and so you become better able to protect yourself. So like, just age is preparation, and this was 100 years. So I kind of, and also with it being flowers, and her name is Briar Rose, so it would be like the rose that blooms on these hedges, on these thorns. If there's actually supposed to be a relationship there, that with these 100 years passing, she herself has grown up. and is now an actual woman who would be able to, who is prepared for life. I don't know. I don't know. Um, that's very possibly just me trying to apply. It might be me guilty of modernity, where I'm just trying to apply something that I know nowadays onto this. But the whole, it makes sense to me to a degree that I'm very certain, very confident that the fact her name is Briar Rose, and the it is a thorny hedge that does produce flowers in the end here. That's got to be intentional. Like there must be a relationship. And there's also, but round about the castle there began to grow a hedge of thorns, which every year became higher, and last grew close up round the castle and all over it, so that there was nothing of it to be seen, not even the flag upon the roof. But the story of the beautiful sleeping Briar Rose, for so the princess was named, went about the country. So that from time to time, princess, yeah. She's named after the hedges are grown here. And it's for so the princess was named. I'm assuming that means what the king and queen named her, not just as the story spread, she was called that. It seemed a little odd, but to name her that by people naming her that who may not know her, may not have ever seen her, and don't know she is actually that beautiful. So I do think she may have actually been named Briar Rose originally. So being revealed there does further make me. It is why I'm so certain, so confident that there is a relationship there. I just don't know what. I'm uncertain about what the specific relationship is, what the symbolism is supposed to be there. But yeah, the thing that does annoy me though with it is he's lucky prince number 7. It's he didn't earn it. He was just the one there. I mean, in theory, the old man could have walked in. Yeah. So, and it's also not clear. Yeah, it's not clear that the kiss is what awoke her. I mean, I guess it could have been. Yeah, the curse had ended, but she was just now, instead of being in enchanted sleep, was just asleep, and he kissed her, and that woke her up, because I would assume if you kissed a sleeping person, that they would wake up. Maybe they don't always have to if you're very, very gentle, but it still is. Yeah, mainly I'm just focusing on that because of the whole, fairy tale trope, fairy tale cliche of, true love's first kiss breaking a curse. It's like, well, that's actually not necessarily what happened here. And this is probably one of the more famous examples, one of the more famous fairy tales to feature a kiss in there and a curse. So, yeah. Yeah, so I'm just trying to. It's been many years, but my memory tends to be decent, especially for things back then. So I'm trying to replay the movie in my mind, and it's like you definitely have Maleficent being a witch. I hope I am remembering correctly, not combining things, but turning into a dragon that the prince has to defeat. Ultimately does, and that's how he wins Briar Rose. But I cannot remember what the relationship is for Maleficent 2. I feel like is like the mother or stepmother. So we do see evil stepmother and other things. So that I'm not exactly the happiest with. Like if I were to expand on this story, I would just try to have some challenge that he must succeed. That's completely all I've got here. They do have it in there, but in that movie, but by my memory, but they have it there by merging the character with. I'm gonna go with stepmother, so I'm not insulting the mother. And it's like, okay, do you really need to do that? So it's yeah. Yeah, I don't care for that as much. That solution for expanding on it, I should say. Yeah, so now I'm just thinking, would I have? I probably would never actually try to expand on these things. Sorry. I mean, I like reading stories like this, and now I'm going into rambling. So you can stop now if you want, I guess. You can stop watching. I like reading stories like this in part because, I'm consuming the story. I'm ingesting it. It's becoming part of me. So maybe I will think of my own story idea that I can learn from this stuff, that I can apply some of this stuff. But one issue that I know I have is, and doing these videos actually may be hurting it, is I tend to be very technical. Like in Catherine Rose's science fiction, I believe that science fiction by its nature should be very technical. I also have super fantasy stories, and I'm actually still technical there, even though fantasy does allow you to just be like, no, it works this way. Just hand wave it. But some of these fairy tales are a bit heavy on the hand waving, a bit heavy on the magic, which I'm not exactly completely comfortable with. So I don't know if I could do something. But that is one reason why the whole the king's daughter shall in her 15th year, yada yada. The 12th, whose good wish still remained unspoken, came forward, and as she could not undo the evil sentence, but only soften it, she said, "It shall not be death, but a deep sleep." That I like. That may sound weird, but I do like that, because it is that kind of technical thing, where it's like, yeah, I can't break what she did. In theory, they're equals, so no, I can't break that, but I can modify it this way. That I like. That's the kind of technical stuff I like. But I'm just like I was saying with the hedges just growing up each year. It's like, see, that I actually don't like, because that means then that initially it was be very easy to get in. Why didn't anyone? So to me, it's like it should have just very rapidly grown up, and it's like covered that all the way up to the flag within that first year, even. So that way, yes, it is sealed off. So, but yeah, I don't know. All right. Next is Dr. Know-All, and then after that, the Goose Girl, which is the final one in this, which will be kind of neat because I am looking forward to. I know what book I want to do next, and it will be fun going through that one. I've not decided what I want to do after that, but we'll see. We'll see how things work out. Anyway, where's my mouse cursor? There it is. All right. I shall see you next time.